So I would like to thank from the core of my heart Indian Veterinary Association and especially Dr. Chirantan Kadyan, who have nearly made a defunct Inter-Veterinary Association to a very dynamic institute about our Indian Veterinary Association. I would like to thank Dr. Yaspal Malik for shaping up this program so nicely after so many talks. And I request Dr. Yaspal Malik to please keep on noting if anything goes wrong, if someone was suppose muting or whatever, and you do let me know if, through the phone if something goes wrong so that we can stop and start again. And with that word, congratulatory word to the Dr. Chirantan Kadyan, I would like to say that veterinary is going to become a central stage phenomena in future. And why it is going to become a central stage, that you must be noting that 60% of animal disease, 60% of human disease are of animal origin. And we are the largest contributor, we are the highest milk producer, and contribution from the animal husbandry side to the GDP, like milk itself, is far greater than the rice and everything putting together. We are the largest exporter of the shrimps in the world. We are doing $8 billion export of the shrimps to the world. This slide should start from the first, sir. Can you, Dr. Mangesh, this is not first slide. Can you start the slide from the first? This is in between. I see it is in between. Dr. Mangesh, can you start the slide from the first? Hello.
Mangesh.
The slide is, which is actually not the latest one or first one. It is starting from in between. Can you start the?
Yes, sir. Just a minute, sir.
Okay. So in that one, in between, just I want to tell you that veterinary is going to get a central stage. And there was a discussion about Chirantan Kadyan, sir, that we should stop comparing ourselves with Vedico because we have a very unique situation and unique position in the society. And I completely agree and reiterate that yes, we are totally different and we are going to be central stage. But still there are so many issues, and one of the issues is antimicrobial resistance. And in antimicrobial resistance, as Dr. Yaspal sir have pointed out, I have certain state government as well. And usually when we start to giving antibiotic, I personally feel that we don't care that we inform the farmer or this poultry breeder so that we avoid the usage of higher antibiotic, which are critically important for human, and also maintain the withdrawal period. So just we will start from the first slide, and then I will take you through what are the regulatory guidelines in relation to CDSCO, that is Central Drug Standard Control Organization. What are the rules and regulations from FSSAI side? And you are free to ask any question after the session. So if you have any issue, just please note down and we can discuss in the last, in the question and answer. And you can also mail to Dr. Yaspal Malik sir. Next slide, please. So first I will going to cover the smart use of antibiotic in poultry value chain. And then I will come to the dairy. Basically, we cannot do the next slide, please. So we cannot do away with the uses of antibiotic as they are the essential for curing disease, but we have to be smart enough that how should we use antibiotic and without causing any problem. Dr. Mangesh, can you hear me? Next slide, please.
So getting little bit issue.
Okay.
Because all the people are they are coming in, so just to admit them.
Okay, so this is the, anyway sir, sorry, but please, I will be the colleague, no problem. So this is the summary how I'm going to cover. I'm going to introduce AMR, then common disease I'm not going to cover much because the most of the people who are in this seminar are the vet and they are well aware of the disease. And then I will cover the regulatory framework, and then I will cover what is the stewardship, what do we expect a veterinarian role as a supervisor, as a leader into the field, what they can do. Can you switch over to the next slide, please? Yes. Third slide. Third, yes. Okay, and the objective of this is basically to understand the AMR and its linkage to the antibiotic in poultry value chain. And how do you address the AMR through good practices? How do you avoid usage of antibiotic by establishing a good practice? And what are the regulatory guidelines and link to AMR and antibiotic national as well as international? Next slide, please. This is first. Next. Yeah. So as said very well, now first, before slide, before that one, yeah, fifth one, yes. In every seed of good, sir, fifth number slide, fifth number. Yeah. So in every seed of good, there is always a piece of bad. As we always say that if you are using internet, there is a good usage of internet, there is a bad usage of internet. In same way, there is a good usage of antibiotic and also there is a bad usage of antibiotic, which is causing problem into the human through the food source, which is coming to us through the food source, either through the milk or either through the product like chicken and all. Next slide, please. Okay, so the majority of scientists now are agree, and there is a correlation between the food and also the antibiotic that we are using, and it is causing antibiotic resistance. That you can see, you might have seen in some of the newspaper nowadays that they are saying the antibiotic free chicken or antibiotic milk, and some of the news that says, okay, these are the food is full of antibiotic and all that one, though it is not all true, but now it has come into the commonality in a general course of discussion, and now people have accepted and appreciated, yes, there is an issue of antimicrobial resistance. Next slide, please. Looking into this issue now related to health, this was the antimicrobial resistance. Next slide, please. Antimicrobial resistance was the sixth issue raised in UN, United Nations, through this our WHO. So it is very, very critical. This really the health issues are raised into the United Nations health, but this was one of the important issue which was raised. And now coming to the sixth slide, please. Seventh, yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so there is always a universally informed, the consumer are looking for no antibiotic residue in the poultry product. Like you will see that there is always a advertisement poultry or a chicken free of antibiotic or milk free of antibiotic, and there are some paper cutting which says that chicken is full of antibiotic. Next slide, please. So next slide, I am going to tell how these antibiotics are entering our food chain. Like, suppose if you have given some antibiotic to the cattle or the poultry or the pig, what will happen that this antibiotic will kill some good bacteria as well as some bad bacteria. But some of the bad bacteria survives, and these bad bacteria which are not killed by this antibiotic, they survive and they gain antibiotic resistance. Antibiotic resistance is acquired through many ways, and one of the ways is genetic mutation, another way is efflux method, another way is plasmid transmission. Like, I give you one example. E. coli is a very simple bacteria. It is always there in our stomach or intestine. But if this bacteria, which is exposed to antibiotic, will give extra spectrum beta lactamase gene, the same bacteria which was very simple, which is always there on intestine, will no longer be killed by any antibiotic like streptomycin and ampicillin, which are working through the this cell wall synthesis mechanism. Okay, so you give an antibiotic to animal, they will kill some bacteria, some good and some bad one. This good and bad one may will come into your meat, your milk, or they get infected through the waste of animal, like chicken waste, chicken poo. If you are not treating well and you are using this chicken poo as a bio waste or a waste, bio waste or the fertilizer into your field, these bacteria can come into your food chain. And if they will come to your food chain, you have eaten that bacteria, you are going to be resistant, and no antibiotic, at least those antibiotics to whom this bacteria resistance is not going to work. I will give example. I request Dr. Chirantan Kadyan, if you can share some of the this antibiotic sensitivity test from the field side to me. And I am amazed to find that from the field side itself, the milk which was treated with the acquired from the mastitis suffering animal, that the resistance level of some of these bacteria was very, very high. Even they were resistant to the colistin, which is considered to be a last resort antibiotic. Next slide, please. So this was, coming to the next slide, this was also mentioned by Dr. Yaspal Malik sir, that we have a global action plan and we have a national action plan, which was released in 2018, and we are working on that action plan. And in that action plan, I'm going to get in detail what are the issues that we are working. Can you come to the slide number 10, sir? Slide number 10. Okay, these are some of the studies where you have seen that these people have worked on cloacal samples, chicken meat, and fecal sample, cecal sample, and they have all showed that these are the microbes and antibiotic resistance is existing. And salmonella, I just want to mention the number of diseases which have come from the animal to the human. Salmonella is not naturally, typhoid is not naturally disease of humans. They have come from the poultry. Flu come from the duck, the whooping cough, and these all things which have transmitted from animal to the human side. And that's why it is becoming critical for us that it is now one health issue. The one health is means health of the human is not different from the health of animal, and our importance of veterinarian is also increasing in that sense. Next slide, please. So these are the some of the study that I have summarized that have been done in the poultry, which shows that poultry antimicrobial resistance status. And next slide, please, sir. In the resistance in our India, in our country. Next slide. This blank screen have gone blank. Yes, next slide. Okay, this is the conceptual framework of the spread of AMR gene. I tell you one thing, if you have given antibiotic means the bacteria get resistance, but there are some bacteria which get resistant and they can transmit this resistant gene, which in simple term called as plasmid, into another bacterium. And if that bacterial, this plasmid get transmitted, that bacteria also, the next bacteria will also become resistant. And it can transmit through our intestinal microbes to the worker, to the waste, and to the soil, and then it can enter into our feed. This situation makes it very, very complicated, because this is not simple only in the bacteria, but bacteria keeps on changing, and they are getting new and new armor. They are getting new and new weapon, and they are not getting controlled by antibiotic, which is becoming a kind of a nuisance that no antibiotic will work, and we will go to the pre-antibiotic era. Next slide, please. Slide number 12. Okay. In Indian scenario, as I mentioned earlier also, the production of rank of egg in India is third, whereas chicken it is fourth. In milk we are first. So we are doing very well. Initially the broiler, which was used to achieve the weight of 2 to 2.5 kg in 2 to 3 months, now the same is being achieved into 30 and 35 days. And it is because of this rapid growth, and in between 2000 and 2015, antibiotic consumption have increased from 3.2 to 6.5 billion defined daily dose. Defined daily dose means the usage of antibiotic have nearly doubled. The antibiotic that we use for a single disease in a single animal for a certain interval, that is called as defined dose. We have, in India, we have low price of antibiotic, easy availability, anybody can buy, and we are using antibiotic for prevention of infection, sometime for treatment, mostly for treatment in dairy cattle, but sometime for prevention in our broiler. We are also using for promotion of growth and also for improvement in production in farm animal, and sometime an alternative to good barn bread. This is the biggest problem, that sometimes we give antibiotic because we cannot have the good practices in farm hygienic as well as biosafety and biosecurity measures. Next slide, please. After this, now we are coming to the next module, which is common disease and responsible use of antibiotic. Next slide, please. I'm not going to tell you much in detail about the disease, as most of you are vet, and this is a seminar of Indian Veterinary Association. So you can see there are a number of diseases like Rani Khet, Mark's disease, how they affect, and there is a vaccination schedule available for that, and what are the symptoms. So I will skip that portion. Next slide, please. And you can see the sign in the picture, how they get paralyzed and how they feel bad. Next slide, please. And also these are the common poultry disease which affect chicks, and high mortality, respiratory, swollen eyelid and head into the aspergillosis as well as pneumonia. So this I will skip. Next slide, please. And now I'm coming to the use of antibiotic for treatment of purpose as per the prescription. Next slide. This is most important, which I see that from my point of view as a vet when I was in state government, we never realized, I may be sorry, please excuse me if I'm overstating, that I never used to tell that farmer that I have given you your animal antibiotic, so please don't drink the milk. Though farmer used to ask, कि डॉक्टर साहब कोई दिक्कत तो नहीं है, दूध पी लें क्या? So I used to say, oh, no problem, you can. But I was wrong. And now I want to make it emphasize very clearly to all my veterinarian friends, please, if you are giving antibiotic to a farm, to a chicken farm, to a dairy farm, to a cattle, to a cow, please mention that avoid the usage of milk. Though it is very difficult in situation because some of the farmers are really poor, they cannot avoid usage. But in such situation, I advise you, if you cannot throw the milk, feed the milk animal again. If you cannot do that, at least dilute so that the dose at least get reduced. Like for the spectinomycin, the antibiotic has to be used as per the label which is being mentioned, and withdrawal period. Most of the antibiotic, if you don't remember anything, is usually 72 hours. Most of the antibiotic withdrawal period is covered. And for spectinomycin, it is 5 days. For lincomycin is 48 hours. Erythromycin 7 days. Tylomycin 1 day. And for ampicillin, it is 7 to 3 days. And 21 days with injection. Amoxicillin 7 to 3 days. Oxytetracycline is 7 to 3 days. And if it is not mentioned anything, you say it is not mentioned into the label, it is not mentioned the antibiotic, and you don't know, in that case, for 7 days for the egg and milk, and 28 days for the meat and the poultry, and 500-degree days for fish and meat. Though it is very difficult because the life of broiler itself, I told you 35 days, and withdrawal period is 28 days if it is not mentioned. So it is very complicated. In such situation, we can only do one thing, by avoiding the usage and adopting the good practices that I am going to tell you in detail later on. And I want to again make clear, if you don't do anything, 72 hours is very critical. Don't take the product from animal for 72 hours. If you not validated, not mentioned, 7 days for the milk and egg, 28 days for meat and poultry. Next slide, please. This is very critical. Don't say to the farmer or to the producer, no problem, you can use antibiotic. This I was doing because I was not aware. I'm sorry if it is blunt or whatever, but this I want to make it little bit more clear and stronger so that we can reduce the antibiotic. Coming to the strategy to reduce the antibiotic. What are the strategies? What we can do? Next slide, please. Now coming to the strategies that where are we using antibiotic? How disease can enter? Suppose if disease enter with the people, like people means I have seen a farm today, I should not visit the next farm for next 72 hours. Housing should be proper, water should be chlorinated so that there is no, and water equipment should not have any infection. Feed should be very, very clean and without any infection. Bedding material, I tell you one thing about bedding material. How do you know that bedding material is good and bad? Just take a clump of the bedding into your आप मुट्ठी भर के bedding material अपने हाथ में लो और उसको जोर से दबाओ और फिर उसको छोड़ दो. अगर बेडिंग मटेरियल आपके हाथ के चिपका रह गया, इसका मतलब उसमें मॉइस्चर ज्यादा है और वो ठीक नहीं है, आपको बदलना चाहिए. वाटर अगर क्लियर कट नहीं है और वाटर कंजम्पशन कम जा रहा है, सपोज X number of farm, total amount of water that you use is 500 liter, but suddenly you see the water consumption has gone down to 450 liter, means 50 liter reduce it. This indicates there is a problem. So water, feed, people, including wet, wild bird should not be allowed, rodents, vehicles, hatchery, and in hatchery, you should always visit smaller animal first than to the bigger animal, because the immunity of the smaller animal is robust. So I told you about the bedding. Take the clump of bedding in your hand, you push it, make a laddu type, and then you leave it. If something is left in your hand, it means there is too much of moisture, and that should be changed. I told you about water consumption goes down. It means that something is wrong in your farm. It is true with the dairy animal also. Next slide, please. So we have to adapt the strategy wherever the intervention we can do, like good farm practices. In good farm practice, we should reducing the annual usage of antibiotic. How do you reduce? You have to at least start making a record. I have used oxytetracycline this much in this much stock. So at least you know that I am using this much antibiotic. We can set the target from next time. I will at least stop using so that there is no antimicrobial resistance by reducing the incidence of disease. Replace means replacing some antibiotic used with evidence based on sustainable solution to prevent the disease and protect animal health and welfare. Sustainable means something which can keep on going. Like if you have some vaccine available for disease, please use that vaccine instead of using antibiotic. If you have some solution where you can give the clean water, use that by chlorinating rather than using antibiotic. If you can avoid the movement, a farmer usually what happen, they go to the one farm, see something, feed, bedding, chicken, how these chicks are going, and they always come back to their farm. If that means they are carrying a disease. Now you know by COVID, we are all been locked up in our house so that we don't carry the disease from our place to other place. We should also have a good administrative practices to address the environment at national level by refining the technique, and this refining and use of antibiotic by ensuring the responsible and informed selection, correct administration of antibiotic to poultry that have a clinical indication for treatment. Generally, what will happen, we give broad antibiotic, but we have to use more of the cytology. Which kind of symptom are there? What kind of antibiotic should I use? Not blindly using any antibiotic is going to help us. We have to make selection based on some technique and cytology. Here I want to emphasize that there are some tools where you need nothing, only a microscope and two-stage staining procedure that you can do staining easily, and you can also identify that which are the bacteria that and which antibiotic I have to use. This you have to do for the practicing, and we have to distinguish ourselves that we are the vet and we are progressive. Next slide, please. I hope I am doing, Dr. Yaspal, the speed is okay and sound is okay?
Yes, going good.
Okay.
Going good.
Okay. So now next is the reducing by good farming practice. Next slide, please. This good farm practice, I am going to cover only those which you can do very easily. Like if a vehicle is entering, we have to give tire bath. If there is an outside entry, then we have to have an outside perimeter fences so that no bird can enter or no animal, wild animal can enter into the premises. And we have to have a foot bath and disinfectant bath through before we enter to the place. Next slide, please. And all these facility have to have a disinfectant, and we should also know that this disinfectant is working. Sometimes we keeps on using and we are in the impression that yes, it is working, but sometimes it is not working. And another one is the good hygiene practices, that prior to entering the facility, employee and visitors should demonstrate good hygiene practice by showering and wearing clean and designated clothing, by hairnet and coverall. Medical checkup of all employee to be done, and the wash and sanitizing practices. This is very much clear to all of you after the COVID, so I'm not going to tell you in detail, but remember, like COVID, you have to be in the practices into the farm. You have to understand these are all bacteria which can sit on us and carry to the next slide, please. Our farm. And we have to have the another good practices is that we should have the isolated site away from other farm for water bodies, and we should not have any commercial facility, should be oriented on east to west axis. This is important to reduce the amount of direct sunlight. This is usually been done by our people who design this one, but remember the orientation should be east to west. Good concrete road connecting for the easy transportation. Water supply, I told you. If water consumption of animal goes down, this is the first indicator that animal is sick. Usually, if you go to a buffalo and a cattle farmer, what they will tell, कि डॉक्टर साहब खाना पीना छोड़ दिया. So same is applied to the farm, our poultry farm or dairy farm. Suddenly, but that you can only notice when you are measuring something. If you are saying the 400 liter is consumed today, suddenly 300 liter, it means there is some problem which is going to happen. You have to be careful. So water is very good indicator something is going to happen. Preferably highland to avoid the waterlogging, clear defined biosecurity zone like fences, and also the vegetation fences so that no small animal or a mouse or a wild mouse can enter. Proper ventilation in sunlight and signboard in local language, whatever the language that people understand, that this is no entry area, do not enter, or enter only with the permission or whatever, dangerous or whatever. You have to write something which a common man understand. Next. So these are the some biosecurity measures, and there is nothing, no much this application happens. Next is by introducing, means we have to make the entrance in the order. How do we enter? We have to have a system. You have to train your people. How do you enter? For example, if you want to enter the hatchery first, where are the young bird first, before entering the grower house where the older birds have lives. So older birds have a stronger immunity, making them more resilient to any pathogen than any that may be present. So if you are going to go only one facility, go with the proper clothing and disinfection. But if you want to travel everywhere, you have to go every place. So start with the younger one and then go to the older one. So we have to also take care of the cleaning and disinfection. What can kill this organism? By detergent, soap, disinfectant, sunlight. Detergent and soap, I request you to please see what is the efficacy, what should be the strength. And if there is no proper strength in relation to the antibiotic, sorry, antiseptic in relation to urging, it's not going to be effective, and you will be in the false perception that you are doing everything right. Next slide, please. And for this, you have to first clean the dust and soil, and this will nearly remove the 80% of the disease agent, but just by cleaning. And you can use the broom and brush and shovel and compressed air to remove the dust, soil, and any organic matter. And wet cleaning by detergent, soap, and water to remove the organic material. If there is I want to emphasize one thing, if there is a organic material present, then there are some of the disinfectant which will not work. I will give an example. If you have something organic material, 70% alcohol is not a good in disinfectant thereafter. So remember, you have to first remove this organic material before you go for disinfectant. Next slide, please. Okay, these are some of the practices I have shown. How do you clean your ventilator, your walls and your flooring. Next slide, please. These are the some of the drinker and feeder and water. There should not be means leakage. This is why the washing and wiring should be washed carefully. If there is a leakage, it means going to be dampening or increase of this dampness will increase the humidity, and in humidity, bacteria and virus are growing very well. Next slide, please. And in this disinfectant or chemical that's disinfectant or chemical that slowly decomposing agent, they will be killing, like chlorine, iodine, alcohol, oxidizing agent, hydrogen peroxide, phenol, aldehyde. This should be as per the recommendation of local veterinarian. We cannot prescribe as of now anywhere what we can use, and they kill remaining of these disease and left over after the cleaning. I told you first cleaning and thereafter disinfection. Effectiveness of this disinfectant depend on the quality of cleaning. If it is not cleaned very well, then there may not be effective. Hardness of water. If you are drying from the well, you have to see whether it is effective or not, because some of the hard water you have to use disinfectant differently. Quality and sustainability of the disinfectant, and correct dilution. You have to see as per the dilution which is being mentioned. Next slide, please. And this is the next slide I have mentioned. These are the common disinfectant. So their disinfectant category, their group, and their indication, and also their effectiveness. So this slide I will be sharing with you all, and you can also take photograph, and you can also Google and find out. But this should be the way that you are going to select the disinfectant. Next slide, please. And in this, next slide, in this disinfectant, you have to use other parameter like UV rays sometime you are using, and also by disinfectant, and also spraying. Another thing is that you can create a hostile environment for the pest which is coming from outside, like you remove the tree and grass and ponds of water which deter the wild and also wildlife and wild animal from entering to the field, and also putting the bait station for reducing the wild. So these are some of the practices that can be easily done without much application. Next slide, sir. 34 slide. Yes. Good farming practices also include no contact with outside bird. So most even diseases are transmitted through air, or it is highly important to have no contact with outside bird with 72 hours of entering a facility. If you have entered a other farm, if you have gone to see other farm nearby, you have not supposed to enter your farm for next 72 hours. And this include pet as well as bird from the other flock. If your dog have gone, or if you have taken bird from somewhere else, you have to at least wait for 72 hours. Next slide, please. And in the next, reducing good farming practices, and this is really critically important, like poultry manure. If you are using antibiotic, you are not measuring or maintaining the withdrawal period. The bacteria which get resistant is going where? Going into the poo, or going to the litter waste of the poultry, and this litter waste you are going to use a manure, and through the manure, if it is left in, means going to enter our food chain. So it is important you should not use this manure at least without waiting for 90 days, or you have to give it a treatment. This is such as contaminated water and recycling of poultry waste product. This should be very well done, and this litter waste can be procured or treated by some of this method, like by using this chemical like composting, enzyme or sodium hypochlorite treatment with autoclave. This is always there in the big, and also sometime with, if you cannot do anything, then wait and do a compost for 90 days, please. If you are not doing 90 days, directly the bacteria which are resistant is going to enter. And this is mandated by law. The Biomedical Waste Management and Handling Rule 1998 under Environmental Protection 96 should be referred for appropriate disposal of some of the biomedical waste. Next slide, please. And in the next, yes, 36 slide, 36 number, yes. Yeah. In the isolation quarantine of new bird, I told you the 72 hour, the crucial time. Prevent any entry of new bird to a previously infected poultry house. Suppose if you have a poultry house which is infected, you have to completely clean all the poultry house, disinfect it, and leave it for at least how many weeks? 3 weeks. 21 days is the rule. If bird used for show or fair or new, means bird either going and coming, there should be a time where it should be left for 21 days open. Sometime farmer under the pressure, they don't want to lose this time, and they don't want to continue to do, because they have disinfected it. Disinfected, yes, you have done, but it is not so effective. Sometime in crevices, some of the virus and bacteria are there, and they can always come. And recommend pest proofing, so that there is no mouse or a wild animal can enter into. Next slide, please. 37 number. Yes, and we have to document. This is really, really important. We are doing many things very perfectly, but we don't measure. And something which is not measured, it is not done. Simply, I tell you, if you are recording how much water is consumed as a by poultry per day, if you see there is a difference, you can yourself say that something is going to happen. If you say when you have done disinfectant, you should know when you have to do next. If you don't write, nothing is going to be remembered. So it is important you record visitor, you record consumption, you record disinfection, you record health checkup, you do vaccination, and record it. If you are not recording, it is not done. Recording will make sure that, and it should be also preserved. When was the manure removed? You will never remember the 90 days. If you have not recorded, you will forget it. You will think that I have, because every time you might be knowing, we always think we have given a password and we'll remember that password, and we never remember the password. So it is important, please, 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 we have to record. Recording is very simple and it should be done. Next slide, please. And this is replacement with another thing I am going to tell about the good farming practice. Next slide, please. Instead of some of the antibiotic, you have to go for vaccination if it is available. But if sometimes cost is the problem, but you are going to pay much cost if you are going to use antibiotic, because now if you are, nobody is going to buy your antibiotic if it have an antibiotic residue. I'm going to come to that. There are people who are going to test, hotels are going to test, the purchaser are going to test. If they have the antibiotic residue, it will not be taken and purchased at the high prices. So it is important. The first practice is use vaccination. Second, next slide, sir. And next best thing is that you have to do these all, you all people know this. It's like means antibiotic means vaccination schedule is there. And next slide, please. There is a comment, someone says that this presentation should be named as biosecurity. No, sir. I'm going to come into the real time also, regulation also. It's a long presentation, sir. So just wait. So these are the some replacement vaccination schedule. All of you know that one. I'm not going to emphasize. Next slide, sir. And in the replacement, our organizer, Dr. Mangesh, is also into the feed, making feed practices. Now there is a lot of usage of prebiotic, probiotic, organic oil, essential oil, emulsifying agent, antimicrobial peptides, not antibiotic, but peptides. And there are many enzymes like phytase, protease, xylinase, alpha galactase, cellulase, cocktail enzyme. So gut of the health is health word. Gut of the health is very, very important, and it is useful for maintaining the healthy and wealthy farmer. We have to adapt to the alternative, and those people who are who want to have the detailed presentation or about alternative, they can mail me and send me WhatsApp into Pasu Chikitsak Mahasangh group. I can send them. Next slide, please. So these are the different options we have, and it's available. And next is refining. How do you refine the administrative practices so that antibiotic resistance can be reduced? Next slide, please. So these refining techniques to improve the awareness and understanding of AMR through the effective communication. I'm going to discuss with the detail all of you are veterinarian, how our awareness and our understanding is going to change the game plan. Until we are not clear, we cannot tell the farmer. So our focus should be, we should be aware of AMR and we should effectively communicate to the farmer or to the broiler industry or to the dairy industry that antibiotic, if used, should be used only with the proper withdrawal period, only the veterinarian prescription only. And it should be, our laboratories should be strengthened. That I will also tell where you can go and test your antibiotic residue and where you can go and test your antibiotic bacteria. We should reduce the incidence of infection through the effective prevention by maintaining vaccination, biosecurity, also providing good animal feed and food. I would like to emphasize here, our government is always focusing on genetics, genetics, genetics. Genetics have only 20% role. 80% role is of the feed that we are giving to the animal. If feed is not good, genetics will not make sense. And you might have seen that we have brought our this Holstein Friesian cows, which are from the country where the practices are good, are not adaptable to our condition. They are getting a lot of disease. So my emphasis here, the feed is important, and we should strengthen India's leadership in AMR. And it is leadership has to be taken up by veterinarian. Next slide, please. Veterinarian are at the forefront of taking leadership. There is a comment that which says that bacteriophage usage for usage alternative. Sir, the bacteriophage I am aware of, but this is still at the experimental phase. It has not yet come into the market. Now coming into the regulatory framework. Next slide, please. What is the regulatory framework? I am coming to the FSSAI. In FSSAI, we have a regulation, and that regulation is available, the link that I have given. Antibiotic and veterinary drugs are not permitted to be used at any stage of processing of meat and meat product, quality and egg, seafood, including the shrimps, prawn, or any variety of fish and fishery product. I tell you, we are exporting shrimps of $8 billion. We are the world's largest exporter. And even a shrimp farmer is running, ELISA is running PCR at farmer level, because he's aware he's sending to the Europe, and he cannot send any product which is having antibiotic residue, because it is going to be tested there, and if it is tested there, it will be rejected and it will come back. Same situation is going to happen here. We have now now we have maybe added in presentation. Okay, maybe Govind Yadav says that we can add in presentation. I will try to add, but I am trying to add because we are basically veterinarian from the field side, but certainly I will add. So in regulation, we have prescribed the antibiotic, 43 antibiotic, we have prescribed their tolerance limit. Means we can tolerate such antibiotic to a certain extent. That is called as MRL, maximum residue limit. Next slide, please. But in the 43 antibiotic, there are 14 antibiotic which are not allowed to be used. Dr. Rajaram says that bacteriophage are available for treatment in the poultry. Sorry, sir, I'm not aware. So maybe I will try to add next time. So there are 14 antibiotic. So there is a question which says, Dr. Yaspal Blik, sir, so there are very good questions are coming. So please make a note of it. We can discuss at last. So Indian law says, FSSAI 43 antibiotic residues are tolerable. Their limit is set. I have given you the list. 19 antibiotic cannot be tolerated. They should not be there, like chloramphenicol should not be there, cholesterol sulfate should not be there, glycopeptides should not be there. There are list of antibiotic which I am going to discuss in detail later. Next slide, please. So they will not be tolerated. These are the international regulation. The EIC, Export Inspection Council, if you are going to export your meat, you have to make sure that they should not have antibiotic residue as per EIC regulation. So EIC is continuously monitoring, and it should not be there. International regulation like Codex is the central organization which is developed by FAO and WHO. WHO, World Organization for Animal, OIE, and there are European EU law, and there are USA, United States laws also. Next slide, please. So these are the compliance and verification. Next slide, please. I think so this FSSAI regulation is available. I am going to, can I just minimize this, sir? Actually, I have sent a wrong, more presentation I want to send and want to discuss. Can I minimize this one just a while? Okay, friend, now I'm going to discuss in detail about the regulation. So food safety and Dr. Yaspal, can you make sure that it is visible? Can somebody make it, Dr. Mangesh?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Visible, okay.
Yes.
So the new and revised tolerance limit of 43 antibiotic, now it is increased to 49 because some are in the pipeline. There are 14 antibiotic which are prohibited to be used, and we have also set the tolerance limit of 10 antibiotic for honey, and we have also published a guidance document. This is another important this issue from the CDSCO. CDSCO is the Central Drug Standard Control Organization. They are saying that there is no provision of use of drug or antibiotic animal feed premix in the drug and cosmetic 1940 rule made thereunder until unless it is approved by them. So they may approve such usage of antibiotic and any such preparation formulation where drug antibiotic used as considered as drug under the Drug and Cosmetic Act. Manufacture sale of such preparation containing drug without license is punishable offense, and state level authority. We have also done monitoring and surveillance of the antibiotic at FSSAI, and we have found that most critical antibiotic which are for human usage, tetracycline, and your internet connection is unstable, it says. Is it okay? Dr. Mangesh, it is okay, going
yes,
okay?
Yes, is it okay?
Okay, so oxytetracycline, nalidixic acid. So some of the antibiotic which are very important for human are basically usage. And what are the problem? Some of the antibiotic which are very important for human is coming into animal usage. And if they are used, there is no withdrawal. And there is the high usage of antibiotic in fish and chicken. With what we want to do, that we should stop usage of 5 group of antibiotic that we called as critical important, WHO critical important antibiotic like cephalosporin 3rd, 4th, and 5th generation, glycopeptide, macrolide, prolimixin, and quinolones. Some of the people also say that veterinary is the reason for antimicrobial resistance. So what I try to do, I try to have a export data, import data, and industry. How much antibiotic is produced in India, how much antibiotic is exported, and how much antibiotic and imported, and how much out of that total antibiotic is going to the veterinary usage. And this is really, I can prove with you the data that veterinary is not the culprit. We along with ILRI, International Livestock Research Institute, is also trying to collect the data on feed sample, land fecal sample, farmer are interviewed, why they are using antibiotic, and identifying the veterinary, how they are commonly using antibiotic, and also from the poultry product. These are the some of the actions from FSSAI side that we are trying to categorize antibiotic. We are doing 3 categories: human usage, veterinary usage, and both human and veterinary usage. So we are doing continuous surveillance, and we emphasize that nowadays the poultry feed and animal feed is not being controlled by anybody. And if it is not being controlled, so there is a problem. So we want to bring the animal feed into the control of FSSAI. Now the animal feed, which was not being controlled by an agency, have been brought in control indirectly by putting into BIS standards. So some of the BIS standards have been made mandatory by the FSSAI. We are also request our Indian Veterinary Association to have simple regulation or simple guideline type where we can green line, where we can use antibiotic for common purpose. We have a orange line where we cannot use them or use them with the caution, and also red light where we should not use antibiotic at all. So these are some of the international regulation. Now I'm coming to the most important and critical part of my presentation, antimicrobial stewardship in the veterinary practices. And this is most critical, as you can see from the photograph from Dr. Santosh Vakchure. He's very active veterinarian to the group, that there are now younger farmer and the professional farmer are coming up, and we should be giving them very good information. And it all starts with communication, stewardship and leadership, and kind of a supervision is a shared responsibility, and it should be participatory, understanding the motivation, why a particular person is using antibiotic, what are the common drivers, and there should be a trust between veterinarian and client. Coming to the second important, we are suffering from a problem of called as informatitis. Mastitis along with informatitis. We have too much of information, and we are conveying that information in such a way that client is not able to understand. So there are many clients which are aware, but they are not able to implement. So awareness in itself will not lead to the behavioral change. Farmer may be knowing the problem is with antibiotic usage. We also may be knowing there is a problem with antibiotic usage, but it is not changing our behavior. I don't know the reason. So this problem of informatitis, we are aware, we know, but still we are not changing. So there may be many barriers like monetary concern. If we know that you have given antibiotic, but if you will tell your farmer not to use antibiotic, will he change? No, he will not, because there is a monetary concern. He cannot throw the 10 or 20 liters of milk. For that, we have to come up with some strategy. So low capacity to invest and wanting to ensure that animal get away with the treatment. Another important aspect is the stages of changes. How do people change? They start from pre-contemplation. Then contemplation means start thinking. Then they start to prepare. If I'll change, what will happen? Then action start. I am ready to change. Dr. Saab is saying I am ready to change. And after change, will they maintain the change? But in this change, maintenance of change, there is a problem called as ambivalence. Ambivalence, I know there is a problem, मेरे को पता है problem क्या है, लेकिन हाँ मैं change भी होना चाहता हूँ, लेकिन हाँ कैसे होगा? Means he is aware, he have the change talk and sustain talk, telling, pushing and persuading for a sustained talk, and asking, inviting and engaging. Generally, I told you the problem of informatitis. We keep on giving the bunch of pheromones. I am knowing, I am the boss, I know. Instead of that, we should also give farmer a chance so that he can tell, okay, this is the problem. This is what I am going to do. This is how I am going to change. Otherwise, क्या डॉक्टर साहब पैसे नहीं है, खाने के नहीं है, दूध का क्या करें? This ambivalence means this side also, this side also. It is very, very difficult. And this behavioral change will become an issue, and this can only will happen if we have the passion and ethics and ethology to change. Now, the antimicrobial resistance, especially the veterinary, why do we prescribe what we prescribe? Coming to the next slide, Dr. Mangesh, is this slide visible?
Yes, yes. Yes,
okay.
Sir.
So, yeah, we have extrinsic factor and intrinsic factor. This is applicable to all practices. Suppose I am going to practice and I go and see a buffalo. So we have a practice culture. In my bag, I have enofloxacin, oxytetracycline, cephalosporin, or something XY. So I will use that. I have a practice. So I have a culture.
There looks
Kind expectation.
problem
That's
sound. Some
Yes, sir.
problem.
Yes, sir. So we need to check the range. There may be the chances of range at sir.
Okay. Because it is breaking. Voice is breaking.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay, so this.
Yes, it is now. It is okay, sir.
Okay.
It is okay.
So practice culture, because I have certain antibiotic in back. Client expectation. आज डॉक्टर साहब आए हैं, आज डॉक्टर यशपाल मलिक साहब आए हैं, तो मेरी भैंस ठीक होनी चाहिए. कि बिल्कुल ओके हो जाए. So client also expect that it should be one time. Reputational risk, it is my practice, मैं तो कभी फेल होता ही नहीं, so I will use very very high antibiotic. Time pressure, even farmer tell डॉक्टर साहब सुबह तक भैंस ठीक हो जानी चाहिए, नहीं तो 20 लीटर दूध का नुकसान हो जाएगा. हमारी चिकन एक दिन में ठीक हो जानी चाहिए, नहीं तो इसका जो है ना वेट गेन प्रॉब्लम आ जाएगा. Economics is the issue. The price from the milk, price from the chicken. Clinical finding and patient factor. What are the findings that you see sometime? Now you don't see the classical finding, and the findings are confused. In that context, you start to use antibiotic. Intrinsic factor are like clinical experience. What are my experience I am facing? What are my confidence level? My confidence go high with the high antibiotic or broader antibiotic. Attitude to take risk. If I will use some antibiotic, if that does not work, he will call some other veterinarian or some other practitioner. Will that can you take that risk or attitude? Can you means that risk means you can afford? And discomfort with uncertainty. You don't want to become uncertain. You want to be dead sure, 100% sure that you will cure antibiotic. And also the prescribing habit. I told you what is there in our poultry, our bag, or what is there in our this medical store is also important. Also values and belief in our system. Now these are some of the factors which are very common with this our prescribing. How do we prescribe? Most of the time we prescribe just in case we are sure that there is no need of antibiotic, but still we are using antibiotic. In some cases, I prescribe in pyometra. We are giving cephalexin inside intrauterine and giving XYZ antibiotic is systematic. Systemic and locals are different. When we are treating with the abscess, sometime in a local infection, there is no need of antibiotic. Sometimes there is a simple off-fed or some issues are there. We may not use antibiotic. We don't need antibiotic, but we still use antibiotic. In such case, I want IVA, Indian Veterinary Association, we can have, and this way have a discussion. If there is no septicemia, no toxemia, no temperature, we can wait for 1 or 2 days. And we can use simple cytology technique. They can diagnose, and we can diagnose with small single step staining, and we can easily. Now in this one, we should use avoid use of blanket usage without clinical evidence-based decision making. Without the clinical indicator infection, I told you sometime there is a problem, or we can say okay, this is well, but still we keep on using antibiotic. Use evidence to prescribe a suitable medicine and dose. Respect the cascade and using licensed medication. Sometime we have to calculate the dose correctly. How many of veterinarians are taking weight of animal before we are giving antibiotic? How many of veterinarians are completing the course because it has to be given continuously for 5 days, twice a day or thrice a day? These are all important which are contributing for AMR. And we should also communicate with the owner, why are you doing it and what are you doing it? I am giving antibiotic, this antibiotic is for this purpose. At least you tell owner that this residue may come into the food, so don't sell outside, or you have to make some use of antibiotics, some of these product for other purpose. And don't use broad spectrum antibiotic just because it is easier to use. So use of correct medication without pressurizing, prescribed or persuading by owner for drug companies, only use when necessary, and don't prescribe just for making business. At last, I would like to say to all my veterinarian friends that we are different. We are going to make a change in antibiotic AMR stewardship, and I take an oath along with all of you that I am a vet. I have been bitten by a cat. I have been bitten by a rat. I have been kicked by a cow. I have once fell face down on dungs. I have once been infested by cattle teeth. I have once touched a lion sedative. I have once touched a hyena sedative. I have played with a snake, young and non-venomous, severally. Sometimes I like what I do. Sometimes I love it. Sometimes I'm indifferent. But most of the time, I believe I will change the world some days. So with this word, Thank you very much. Though it was a long presentation, I might have missed, and maybe I'm sorry if I have made some of the content, made some means some mistake by chance or something I have missed. Now over to you, Dr. Yashpal sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vijaypal, for a comprehensive overview over the abuses of antibiotics and uses as well. We can't deny that antimicrobials are very useful, but indiscriminate use and sometimes our unawareness is leading to that the problem which is spreading world over. And the government of India as well as the all healthcare agencies world over, they have taken this issue very seriously and all are working together to fight this under our national action plan that started in 2017 and that will go up to 2021. The first report will come on the some of the important aspect that how we have minimized the or we have created the awareness on the antimicrobial resistance. So this is something good that is going to come, and all we are becoming aware and we are making others also aware on the uses of antimicrobials. And this is very interesting, and hopefully I have gone through all the chats, and particularly some of them are interested to have a to know about that what we, if we don't have to use the antibiotic, what is the alternate. So this is a very good question from all of you, and we have a specific speaker over the this talk, alternative to antibiotics, that will be very useful to all of us, and we have planned a lecture for
so
thank you very much each and everyone, and now I give this to Dr. Sontake.
Hello. Dr. Mangesh, sir, can you please
Yes, yes,
mute the
yes, I did it. I did it. Yes, Dr. Umesh Sontake, it's unmute. It's unmute for you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vijaypal sir, for your nice presentation. For today's webinar, we have a guest from Maharashtra State Gazetted Veterinary Association, Dr. Ramdas Gade and Dr. Santosh Vakchore sir. Dr. Ramdas Gade is the president of Maharashtra State Gazetted Association. May I request him to please say something about this today's topic and their activities. Please, Dr. Mangesh sir, give
Yes,
us.
both are unmute, so they can speak.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hi, everyone. Can you see me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You
Are
just.
Yes. Good evening to all. I am Dr. Ramdas Gade. Dr. Yashpal Singh, you have given very good information to us. What happened?
Yes, we can listen. Yes.
Okay, Doctor.
Yes. We in Maharashtra, we have produced more quantity of milk. Firstly, there in Maharashtra, when I was learning in Bombay, there was a ration card like milk card from RA Dairy Milk. Milk was not available to families, but now there is a more milk. But problem in milk is now residue. Not only in milk, in meat, in eggs, in chickens. So it is our veterinarian's duty to give the safe food to the all public societies. So in front of this, FSSI and we, Mahavet from the Maharashtra, we want to link up some questions, some answers, and some rules also to regularize the food quality. We are producing, but we are not controlling the quality of food in milk, eggs, and everything. So being as an IVA, I request Dr. Chirantan Kadian sir to make some issues towards the government, give some memorandums, and in Maharashtra we are trying to give memorandum to the government of Maharashtra to give some authorities to veterinarians to check the food and drug administration's rules to us, to check the quality of milk and meat also.
Nice, sir. Nice initiative. May I request Dr. Santosh Vakchore, sir, please highlight on this topic.
Okay, it was a very nice presentation from Dr. Vijaypal Singh, sir. I will like to draw attention of all participants towards the fact that currently around 60% of the diseases in humans has an animal origin. So this, from that point of view, the AMR has a paramount importance from not only from veterinary point of view, but from human point of view also. One more thing, from food safety perspective, we should know that antibiotic residues in milk, meat, and eggs carries a very much importance. So that's why this is a very important topic. I will like to also notify you guys that apart from antimicrobials itself, we should also focus and try to minimize the use of other chemicals like anthelmintics, anti-inflammatory drugs, because there is an example of diclofenac. A species of vulture is also is at the verge of extinction just because of excess use of diclofenac. So the that things also we should think of, because in our country we can't deny that the beef industry gets the animals for slaughter only after they are of no use. They had been overburdened with drugs during their illness, and then they are majority of them are taken for the slaughter. So that point of view also we should think. There are one important things that we should very seriously think of, preventive use of uh, antibiotics as well as a growth promoters. We should seriously think on that aspect of the antimicrobial use. One more thing, I will also like to bring attention of FSSI towards the need of development of the our own standards about the antimicrobial residues, because the standards had been developed in different countries based on the per capita consumption of that produce. So if European countries, they are consuming chicken or meat at a level which are very much higher than us. So the countries like India should also have their own standards based on the consumption of the population and the risk proposed. So that is also an important point. Also, to make the farmers, veterinarians, and industry people aware about the antimicrobials, it is very nice initiative. Dr. Vijaypal sir told that they are thinking to categorize the antimicrobials, but we should think to categorize as well as after categorization there should be some regulation about the labeling of the particular antimicrobial, their packaging also. If the antimicrobial is supposed to be for very restricted circulation, it should be packed in a colored its packet should have a different color like red one. If it is for uh, warranted use, then it may have some other color, and if it is for free circulation, it can have a green color or like that. So those regulations will help the development of awareness that what we are going to use. Just seeing a packet, farmer will alert, oh, this is red one, that means it is dangerous, I should follow the proper practices. Again, there are few solutions which we can suggest to minimize use of antibiotics. First is the focus on the development of immunity of animals and birds. Second thing is nutrition. Nutrition is the best solution to maintain the immunity and health of animals and birds. Third one is the vaccination, as told by Vijaypal sir. Fourth one is the improved diagnostic facilities and use of antimicrobial sensitivity test before using any antibiotics in animals. Fifth one is the use of or development of ethno-veterinary practices and alternative medicines as a solution to alternative to antimicrobial and other drugs. Strictly follow of the withdrawal period is one more solution. And to prompt why farmers will follow these regulations, they should be the incentives should be given to them. So those policies should be implemented by government. And last one, to development of the channels to utilize the products which are overburdened by residues. So those channels, apart from the human consumption, those channels should be developed. For example, for cattle or dairy farm, we know that hardly 1 or 2% animal may undergo treatment at a state or at a given point of time. So that milk should be utilized for some other purposes based on the expected level of antibiotics or any chemical in that. Maybe they can be utilized for feeding cows, or maybe for some other purposes. So these are the
Dr. Santosh
important
sir,
factors. Yes.
thank you for your views regarding the antimicrobial resistance. Thank you, Dr. Ramdas Gade sir. May I request Dr. Yashpal sir, please ask so many questions are, I think, in the chat portion. Can you ask to the Vijaypal sir for getting discussion?
I think just after the sum up from Dr. Vijaypal, the main question what I could see is the regarding the bacteriophages uses and alternatives. So already, as I said, that we have a speaker over that particular topic. So it will be good. And if Dr. Vijaypal wants to say something, he is most welcome right now.
Dr. Yashpal Malik, very well, because just to mention, so we have a list of approved antibiotics which can some of the we have a list of, the host has asked to start here. Okay, so we have a list of alternative which are approved by CDSCO. So those people who are interested, I can share the list of antibiotic alternative to them directly. This is a very vast list, so it's very difficult to say everything here. And these are basically enzyme like phytase and all this, which somebody have also mentioned. And these are enzymes which are like phytoprotease, metalloprotease, and bromoprotease. There are many things which are there, which are approved by CDSCO. So I can share you the list of approved antibiotic alternative list. If some speaker want, Dr. Yashpal Malik.
Is this in the format of PDF, something you have, Dr. Vijaypal?
Yes.
Can we upload this on our IVA website for everyone to have that for
I can share you tomorrow on the mail, sir, and then you can post in the IVA website.
Upload it on the IVA. It will be useful to everyone.
Yes, sir.